All righty, welcome. I'm Randy Cross. This is the Randy Cross Podcast, Season 2, Episode 13, and we're coming to the final week of the NFL season. And that means the Super Bowl, because now everything football ends with the Super Bowl, at least for the 2019-2020 season. And this whole week, though, takes me back about 38 years, because 38 years ago, I was freezing my ass off in Southfield, Michigan. Now, Southfield's not far from Pontiac, Michigan, which was the site of the Pontiac Silverdome, which is where Super Bowl 16 was held. And that was where that all sort of started. It started basically 2 weeks before that when the Niners beat Dallas and got to their first Super Bowl. But indoors at this thing was an amazing experience from a lot of angles. Severe snowstorm and ice storms that week. Joe Montana played an incredible game. And actually, most of the crowd couldn't get into the stadium early because Vice President Bush had decided that he was going to get there about that time. So they shut all the roads down. And there was this incredible scramble to get there in time for kickoff. That picture there, Ronnie Lott and company, and that amazing goal line stand our defense put on, that was incredible. There's a high five with Fred Quillen and Earl Cooper off to the left there. 71 is Keith Fonhorst. He was part of a group that pretty much predates success in San Francisco. That was four of us in the offensive line. It was Keith Fonhorst, myself, Fred Quillen, John Ayers, that were left over from the bad old days, the 2-14 days, the pre-Bill Walsh days. But that whole week for Eddie DeBartolo, Bill Walsh, Keith Fonhorst, John Ayers, Fred Quillen, Freddie Solomon, Dwight Clark, Ronnie Lott, Hacksaw Reynolds, Fred Dean, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but that was the start of it all, and that's something that I remember quite fondly. And yeah, it's memories. Yeah, for 1 week you do kind of live in the past, and yeah, we get to do a lot of fantastic stuff right now. But it's great to sort of hearken back and remember those days. Because there was a time when the Niners weren't very good. And there was a time between their last Super Bowl win and now, which is a considerable stretch of time, approximately 27 years, where it used to be, it seemed like normal that they won Super Bowls. Now it's exceptionally not normal when you don't do something for 27 years. But enjoy this week. Enjoy this game. And I know I will, because I've got a lot of great memories. And a lot of this is thanks to one guy, and that's Eddie DeBartolo. And on behalf of a lot of people, just want to say thanks, Eddie. All right, let's hit sports. All right, the world of sports. Well, this whole podcast will be in one way or another tied to sports. Not sports of all types, but sports of a couple types. The big game. And why do you call it the big game? Well, because certain entities own that other name, and they get very pissy if you use it. Don't want to have people getting pissy now, do we? But San Francisco and Kansas City. San Francisco hasn't been in one since 2013, where they lost. And Kansas City hasn't been in a Super Bowl for 50 years. In fact, it's been so long, New Orleans has been through a few stadiums since then. That is Tulane Stadium. That's where the last Kansas City Super Bowl was played. And Kansas City goes back a ways. There's Lenny Dawson, Mike Garrett. Yeah, it's a while ago. That's Alan Page, the Hall of Fame defensive tackling Lenny Dawson. Lamar Hunt, who the AFC Championship game trophy is named after him on the left. He's the longtime owner, Started as the Dallas Texans, became the Kansas City Chiefs. Lenny Dawson, their Hall of Fame quarterback, and Hank Stram, their coach, won himself a Super Bowl, and then did radio and television for CBS forever after that. This is a photo of a bunch of the old Niners coming on the field in New Orleans. Different stadium, Superdome, different Super Bowl. This was the Harbaugh Bowl. This was John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh, coaches of that game, the Ravens and the Niners respectively. And it wasn't a real crazy good Super Bowl. It was close early. Second half, it got a little out of whack, got close again. Niners kind of blew it. But, you know, as someone that was part of an organization that had won 5 straight, I will always remember this team as the one that didn't win. So hopefully they won't have any company come Sunday. But this Superdome, if that picture looks a little dark, this is also known as the Blackout Bowl because right after Beyonce's performance at halftime, yeah, I said Beyonce, a box went out. Somebody pulled the plug. No one ever really explained it thoroughly. But the electricity went out for about half an hour. So there was a lot of tap dancing by TV, a lot of panicking by TV executives. And at the end, everything was right with the world, especially if you're a Raven fan, because they won that game. Over the weekend, a couple of football events happened that normally are kind of low-key, but it seemed like this weekend was even more especially so, and mainly because of what we'll see here as the story in the Wambulance of this week. But the Pro Bowl was played in Orlando. Yes, Orlando. There's a stadium there, used to be called the Citrus Bowl, is now called the Camping World Bowl. I don't know why. They paid enough to name it. So it is now the Camping World Bowl. That's where the Pro Bowl was played, and Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens was the MVP. Much like the regular season, he was the star or one of the stars in this game, and the AFC came out 38-33. So every member of the AFC won $75,000. Every member of the NFC who lost won $35,000. Thus, the motivation as to why you want to play a little harder, or at least if you're going to look after yourself and try not to get hurt, you try not to get hurt a little harder, because there is a money difference. Also, this weekend was the Senior Bowl. Great event. Mobile, Alabama does an amazing job. Reese's, which seems a little incongruous, if that's a word, as a sponsor, this Senior Bowl has been around a long time. And it was named that, obviously, for a very specific reason. You used to have to be a senior to play in this game. Now, if you have at least been in college 4 years, you would have been a senior. You were a senior in school, but maybe you have more eligibility left. Well, you can play now. And a couple of guys had pretty strong games. Anthony Gordon, the quarterback from Washington State, had the most statistically gaudy numbers. I think he was 6 of 8 for about 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, the MVP of the game. Gordon was playing for the North. Don't ask me about the geography of these teams, because some of it doesn't make sense, because Washington State is in the north, but Oregon's in the south, and their quarterback, Justin Herbert, was the MVP of this game. Also 6 of 8, threw for about 60, 70 yards, but ran for 25, 30 yards. So he ends up being the MVP and did an awful lot for his stock when it comes to the draft, because he will be drafted very, very high. And yes, the reason that Tua Tagovailoa wasn't in this game was twofold. One, he's not a senior, though he was eligible now. But number 2, he's still recovering from that cracked hip. So he will be the first quarterback drafted, more than likely. All right, the other big sporting event over the weekend, at least as far as I'm concerned, it was the first of many, many, many to come golf tournaments on CBS. This was the Farmers Insurance Open, played at Torrey Pines on both the north and south courses there at Torrey Pines in San Diego. Visually, a beautiful tournament. Golf-wise, it was extremely well done. Came down to the last putt John Rahm was putting for an eagle on 18 to tie the eventual winner. Tiger Woods had a decent game. Rahm probably shouldn't have lost this tournament, probably should have won it. Hit some knucklehead shots, but he's young. He'll learn, and he'll have plenty of other chances. Mark Leishman, Australian golfer, wins this award, and it was pointed out to me just a little while ago, and also won possibly the worst sports trophy in America. What is that? When did golf tournaments start giving out trophies that look like they belong in the bottom of an aquarium? But anyway, I know Cypress Tree, Pacific Coast, all that. Yeah. All right, we're going to go now next to Wambulance, but just be aware this is not our normal Wambulance section.
You better grab your blankie and just squeeze it real tight. These people need to get a real life.
Yeah, the Wambulance section is always kind of the crazier, quirkier side, but this week it's kind of about news. And the news over the last 24 hours was the tragic death of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter, nicknamed Gigi, were among a group that was killed in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. Kobe, an amazing story. His dad, Joe Bryant, played in the NBA, played for the Sixers, eventually went and played in Italy in the professional league over there, and that's why Kobe grew up over there. He came back and briefly spent time in Philadelphia, both in high school, and also he was drafted originally by the Sixers. Lakers worked out a deal. Jerry West put him in a Laker uniform. If you can name that coach with the gray hair, you get the prize of the week. I know who it is. I'm not going to say. But yes, he was actually a Lakers coach at one time. But Kobe Bryant's career was almost unparalleled. He had a pretty incredible start to his career post-basketball. He was only 41 years old. He had a production company. He had huge investments, a couple of which that had paid off like a crooked slot machine. He was a wonderful father of 4 daughters. Not much you can say negative about this guy. There are a few things that people will not spend much time dwelling on, and rightfully so, because he did mean so much to LA, the LA community, the LA sports scene, and literally thousands and thousands of people all over Southern California and all over the world. But Kobe Bryant is dead now at 41 years old. All right, let's go to another different kind of a story. It's a feel-good story, but it's an educational feel-good story, because I'm guessing maybe you didn't know about this guy.
This is the good news. This is the good news.
Yeah, the world of basketball, besides losing Kobe Bryant, also lost a giant this last week or so in Morgan Wootten. And who's Morgan Wootten, you might say? In fact, most of you may say, who's Morgan Wootten? He was the head basketball coach at DeMatha High School in the Washington, D.C. area. To say he was just a basketball coach sort of shortchanges him. He won. I've got to look at the number because I don't want to be wrong. His overall record was 1,274 and 192. He was to high school basketball kind of what John Wooden was back in the 60s and 70s to college basketball. He was an unbelievable coach. He was a teacher. He was a mentor. He meant everything to that basketball program at DeMatha. He won 5 high school national championships spanning the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He won 22 D.C. area championships from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, last championship being in 2002. he's just an incredible coach. He's the son of a U.S. Navy officer, grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. This guy coached the way it should be. And DeMatha High School is a very legendary sports school in the Washington, D.C. area. And one of the reasons it's as legendary as it is Morgan Wootten. And I'm not exaggerating when I say he'll be remembered right there along with a guy like John Wooden. And John Wooden would probably point that out. Morgan Wootten, on the other hand, would probably dissuade you from remembering him that way. He wasn't quite, I guess, figured he was quite that important or special. But to literally 50, 60, 70 years of basketball players coming out of one of the great basketball schools in America, Morgan Wootten was everything. So condolences to the Wootten family, condolences to the DeMatha family. But this is a really special man. I just had to basically point that out. Check this video out.
And finally, I want to thank God. As Meadowlark said so well, that God's been so good to all of us. And he allowed me to be a teacher and a coach, which I think is the greatest honor I've ever had, to work with our young people. And so I want to thank our good Lord. And a little poem that goes like this would maybe fit us all. It's this crowd on earth, how soon they forget the heroes of the past. They cheer like mad until you fall, and that's how long you last. But God, he never does forget. And in his hall of fame, just by believing in his son, inscribed, you'll find your name. And my belief and prayer is that one day all of us will be in that hall that really counts, the one up in the sky. God bless you. Thank you for a great night. Thank you.
So in a short time, the basketball world loses Morgan Wootten, who won 5 national championships, and Kobe Bryant, who won 5 NBA championships. All right, before we go to Happy Trails, just want to get a little last plug in here for this big game. My Niners are going to win. It's going to be close, and it will probably be a last-second score. It will be above 60 total points scored in this game. All right? Enjoy. Go Niners. And remember where you found this, because social media, very, very important. You go to randycross.com for the podcast, or at rcross podcast. Go to gruelingtruth.com. Go to barnburner.ca. Got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, iTunes, SoundCloud, all of them, all the normal spots. But always start with randycross.com. And if you have any suggestions, send those to producer@randycross.com. All right? How about a little off into the distance here as we go out, a little Happy Trails.